Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here, welcome back to the Railway and welcome back to another review, this time of one of my favourite Hornby 060 tender engines. So today's loco is this. It is my beloved Drummond 700 class. Now I bought this one quite a few years ago, I think back in 2015, 2016, something like that, and I paid £110 for this or thereabouts. Not a bad price of course for what it is. If you know about these you'll probably agree. However, a little while ago Hatton's had these on sale for well below £100. It was quite amazing. Unfortunately, at the time of filming this, I can't find any on Hatton's that are that cheap. They're all sort of over £100. It's a good price for what it is, don't get me wrong, but not as good as it was. However, I will include an affiliate link for you down in the description. When the video goes out, it might be worth checking just to see if the prices have gone down at all. If not, Hornby, please make some more because we love these models. Anyway, as you can tell, mine is in the Southern Black, which is a beautiful livery. The box doesn't show it very well, but this model in particular has a really nice feature to it, which I think you'll really like if you haven't seen it before in one of my other videos. So without any further ado, let's get this one out and find out what this is like. It's been a long time since I've had a good look at this one, so I'm really interested to see whether my opinions might have changed on it over time. Okay, let's get it out and see. Okay, so the first thing I've noticed is that the box is pretty light. Now that's strange because I remember this loco being pretty heavy. Well, that's what I remember. It is quite a tiny loco though, so maybe it is just quite heavy for its size, but not all that large. One thing is for sure though, at 100 to 110 pounds, this is a lot more reasonable than sort of equivalent maybe, I don't know if you'd call them equivalent, but similar Bachmann offerings. The Bachmann C-Class, for example, the RRP of that is now £200, I think, 199, and you can't get them really for much less than 170 quid new, and some retailers sell them for more. So yeah, compared to some things, this isn't too bad at all. If I show you the end of the box, you can see the product code there, which is R3238, Southern Railway, 1920s to 1930s. That's quite a nice inclusion, isn't it? It's nice to see the period there. It's an 060 Drummond 700 class, and yes, there's the price, £109.99. At the time, I was quite chuffed with it, I think, no pun intended, for that price. But yeah, generally speaking, you can get them for less than that now. Anyway, let me show you the back of the box. Now, here's something interesting. You can see it's classified C. I, well, either didn't know or forgot that it was classified C, which is pretty interesting. Either way, in the centre, you've got quite a comprehensive history of the class, so if you can, feel free to pause and read that, although, as always, I will give you some history later on. And then on the far end, we have the 2014 dated diagram of the loco, which gives you an idea of when this model was produced. Yeah, it was still reasonably modern and up to date, isn't it? And I always love to look at those drawings too, which is great. Okay, shall we get this out then? And like I say, if you've not seen this one before, I will get to showing you that special feature which I like so much about this, although there are more than one features that I love about this. So, let's take this out. Okay, there it is. Ooh. Like I say, it's been a long time since I had a close look at this model, and I'm really looking forward to it, actually. Okay, so let's take out the blister. There we go. Yeah, it really doesn't feel too heavy, which is strange because I'm sure there's quite a hefty element of die-cast to the loco. We'll see. Anyway, here we go, the operating and maintenance instructions for the Drummond 700 class. Let's have a quick look inside. So it is the basic stuff really, pretty standard. Lubrication there, fitting accessories, although there aren't very many. Body removal, that's pretty handy. And also assembly and disassembly of the tender. DCC fitting, it's all pretty simple. And then on the back, fitting brake rods, apparently to the tender, which is pretty good. And yeah, I've had this loco apart several times in order to service it and such over the years. Beautiful, beautiful mechanism. Really, really nice. Okay, let's get it out. I believe, I can't see the detail pack, but I think it may be underneath because there's not a lot of space. Yeah, it certainly is. Okay, so yeah, there's not an awful lot. It really is just what the instructions showed. We have a coupling, presumably to go on the front. We have brake rigging, which looked as though it was for the tender. And then also some sort of vacuum pipe, I assume, which will fit onto one of the buffer beams. So that's really good. It just demonstrates that most of the detail is pre-fitted to the model. Okay, let's get this out then, and I will show her to you. Like I say, definitely one of my favourite 060s, this one. Really do like it. Okay, I've noticed that the packaging has made some marks on the body. I just want to make sure they're not permanent. No, they're not. They're not. That's good. Okay, Oh yes. Oh, at last, it does feel quite weighty. I think it just felt light because it's so much smaller than the likes of the Princess or something like that. Okay, there it is. And yes, the feature I was talking about is the green lining. Is it me, or was that really not apparent on the packaging? I remember looking at this in a model shop and sliding the insert out to see the actual logo looked completely different, and that's really what persuaded me to buy it. Beautiful, beautiful green lining. The other feature that is amazing on this is the die-cast boiler, for sure. We actually do have a die-cast boiler, which I think for a shade really over £100 is quite astonishing, and I know a lot of us sure wish that Hornby would do that more often, because it just, you can't beat it. When you feel this in your hands and you feel that it's made of metal and not plastic, you feel as though you could pay any price for it and feel like you got a good deal, because that is such a quality feature. It adds so much weight, it means that the loco's a good puller, and it just feels real in the hands. It feels like you've got a real metal engine in your hands, which is fantastic. So yeah, I can't say enough about die-cast. Maybe it's a bit of a frivolous feature, but I personally really like it. And like I say, the Bachmann C-Class doesn't have a die-cast boiler, and it's now priced at £200, so it's easy to see where the best value is. Wonderful, really, really wonderful. So anyway, here's a bit, I'm excited now. I can't wait to get a close look at this. We will do that, but first of all, here's a little history on the lovely Drummond 700 class. So the 700 class was designed by Dougal Drummond and built in 1897 by Dubs and Company for the LSWR, where they carried out light freight work. 30 of the class were produced in total, but all of them were modified during their lifetimes. Firstly, they had their smokebox doors changed. They were replaced to improve steaming somehow, and then over the years superheaters were eventually added as well, which apparently changed their appearance slightly. Some of the tenders changed over the years as well, with 20 being reused on T9 and D15 designs, and in these cases the original tenders were replaced with tenders from the K10 and L1 440s. I'm not really familiar with those classes, but I'd like to be. The class looks extremely similar to other Drummond designs, and there's a really good reason for that, specifically the M7 and the T9 of course, because they shared standard parts such as boilers and even tenders in some cases, as we've learnt. They were all scrapped though, which is a great shame. None were preserved. Final examples disappeared during the early 1960s after serving for 65 years, which suggests that they were a very successful design. Okay, so there it is then, the Hornby Drummond 700 class, up close and personal for you. And for me, this is fantastic. I really do like this model. It looks wonderful. It's pretty heavy as a result of its die-cast boiler. I make this 226 grams. I will do a comparison and find out how that lies with other models. But the die-cast is a great quality touch. There are one or two areas of the model which don't feel so great a quality. And I remember this being a thing before. It's a very, very fragile model. It's one of Hornby's most fragile. I think the main thing is this big unsupported water pipe here, and if you hold the loco by the boiler, as many of us often do, that pipe is right underneath your fingers, and because it's made of plastic it does flex quite a lot. So I mean, to be fair, nothing's ever dropped off this model in the time that I've had it, but that's partly because I've been on high alert handling it. You have to be really, really careful. Obviously, because it's made of plastic, this pipe doesn't even look that realistic, so it would be nice maybe to see details like that made out of metal in the future. I'm not sure how easy that is to do from a production standpoint. I can't remember ever seeing it done before. So yeah, it might not even be possible. Let me know down in the comments what you think. But I think from a quality and realism standpoint, yeah, I think some pipe work made of metal would be better. And also the reversing rod, whether that's made of plastic or not, I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't have a dreadfully realistic texture to it, does it? It looks almost like painted plastic. It is a shame if that's made of metal, because the paint used has made it look a little bit unconvincing, hasn't it? And the same thing goes in front of the cab. You've got quite a lot of very detailed looking pipe work here, but because it's plastic it doesn't have that realistic metallic effect. And again, yeah, this unsupported section here is quite fragile. It moves when you touch it. So obviously, yeah, be very careful not to touch those elements. That's the answer. And a really nice feature is that those pipes continue down onto the chassis on the underside there, which is really, really good. There are a few other fragile features as well. The safety valves here on top of the dome are loose. They've never dropped off, so it's not a problem, but yeah, just feeling loose parts isn't great on a model, and unfortunately loose parts does seem to be reasonably typical of these. However, the detail is superb, as I'm sure you can tell just looking around here. The painted detail is wonderful. I just love this green lining. It's so unusual. You don't see it very often, do you? Southern black with the green lining. It looks wonderful. And the whole loco and tender are done out in it. As you can see, all the steps, the running plate, everything really is beautifully lined. The side of the cab is worth talking about because you can see we have the plate here on the side. Now, recent Hornby Southern Region locos have looked really dodgy in these areas. The paint, if you remember, let's say the Lord Nelson as an example, the paint they used on those plates on the side to show the running number was really poor quality, and it meant that you could barely read them. This is much better, as you can see. This is how it should look. No sort of metallic flecks in the paint or anything like that, and it means that the running number there is very, very clearly readable. Other lovely features include the representation of the valve gear underneath the boiler there. That had to be a must really, because it's a very, very exposed valve gear on this model because of the height of the boiler, I suppose, and it's also quite a small boiler, which leaves a very, very large gap under there, which means that obviously the valve gear is very visible. A really nice feature that. The smoke box door is also very good. It does have a slight cone shape to it, which I believe is how they were originally, or perhaps the cone shape was added. I'm maybe confusing it there. But either way, as you can see, quite an unusual looking smoke box door, but it does have some nice features, including the separately fitted lamp iron there, which is very, very tiny, and the fully separately fitted smoke box dart. And similarly, just below there, we do have lamp irons pre-fitted. The buffer beam is very realistic as well, as you can see, with metal buffers, and the buffers are indeed sprung. Let me demonstrate that. And they're very, very small buffers too. They're some of the smallest sprung buffers I think I've ever seen. It's quite impressive, that. The cab is very impressive as well. We have some nicely glazed windows, as you can tell, and because this is a very exposed cab, you can see quite a bit of cab detail inside there. Now, it's not the best cab detail in the world. There's no detailing on the gauges or anything like that, and there's only, I think, a couple of different colours used, although that could be prototypical. Yeah, something about that doesn't look 100% realistic. The water level gauges, for example, haven't been done with that sort of transparent acrylic, which sometimes Hornby and other manufacturers use. But besides that, yeah, generally speaking, from any sort of distance, this cab looks really, really good. We do also have separately fitted metal handrails on the cab, and also a metal tender fall plate as well, although it's not adjustable. That is fixed in place, and it is at a bit of an unfortunate angle. I believe a fireman would probably trip over that if it was real. But there is an option for close coupling with this tender, which means if you were to sort of invoke that, the tender fall plate would, I think, easily meet the tender, which is really quite good. I'm not going to do that though, because some of my curves I don't think would allow it. The wheel set looks really good as well. As you can tell, there has been some attempt to cover up the axles. They don't look 100% neat and tidy, but I think pretty good on balance. At least the axles are more subtle than they would be if they hadn't been covered at all. And the coupling rods are nice and realistic looking, although mine are looking a little bit discoloured, but I almost quite like that. That's actually reasonably realistic looking. The tender is one feature that really stands out. I think the green lining probably looks the best on the tender because the underframe has been lined with it. Yeah, just something about that looks wonderful, doesn't it? Really nice. I'd love to see a loco lined like this in real life. The lettering and numbering on the side of the tender is very, very well done. You can see just how large it is as well. Some nice big numbers there, which I quite like. We've also got this nice realistic coal guard around the coal, which is plastic, I believe, but it's reasonably sturdy. The coal insert is removable, and it's also quite nice and fine as well. And there's also detail underneath, I believe. Let's see. I think there's some riveted detail underneath the coal. Yes, there is. So without the coal, the tender is still nice and realistic looking, although obviously you couldn't run it and keep it realistic. But that's a really, really nice touch. Even the coal, as you can see, sort of comes through to meet the fireman, which I think is a really nice little touch, isn't it? Yeah, there's just quite a lot of nice mini features on this model, which I've always enjoyed. Around the back then, you can see there's a similarly large amount of detail. We have the running number reapplied on the back there, separately fitted lamp irons, a pre-fitted vacuum pipe, more sprung buffers, and then the tension lock NEM coupling, which is easily exchangeable if you want it to be. So it's a beauty, in my opinion. You have to be very, very careful with this. You certainly couldn't give it to a young person or anything like that. It is a very fragile model, perhaps more so than most of Hornby's products. But the level of detail is definitely there, and the price seems to be on point. Now then, let's get it down onto the track and we'll do a little bit of performance testing, and I'll tell you a bit about the mechanism. Okay, so there she is then, this beautiful model down onto the track, ready for her test. And the mechanism is absolutely astonishing on this one. I really do love it. There's only one downside with the mechanism, and that is that this uses just a 3-pole motor and not a 5-pole motor. It's a very good motor. It's a big long thing which helps to distribute the weight, I suppose, but it is only 3-pole. Besides that though, the mechanism, like I say, is wonderful. It does have all wheel pickup, so that's all 6 wheels on the loco and all 6 on the tender. That is top notch. Even Bachmann's C-Class doesn't have all 12 wheels picking up. Very, very impressive stuff. But the one thing I like most of all with this model is that Hornby have given some thought to this model beyond its life at the factory. They haven't just focused on getting these things assembled as quickly and as cheaply as possible. They've actually given a thought to serviceability, which is something that other manufacturers, particularly Helgen, really need to learn. So take a look at this. The base plate was held on by 4 screws, just 4, not 9 or anything ridiculous, and the whole piece comes off, pickups and all, everything all together, and that gives you full access to the wheel set so that you can clean it, apply fresh oil, all that good stuff, take it out if you want to. The body is held on by just 2 screws, which gives you full access to the motor. Yeah, it's just really, really beautiful to service. It takes 10 minutes to do. I did it not too long ago. Really love that, and Hornby do that consistently. A lot of Hornby's models are really pleasurable to service, and it's a stark contrast between some other manufacturers, so really top marks for that. Anyway, let's get on to the actual performance then. Now, if I remember correctly, this loco doesn't do great at a slow crawl because of that 3-pole motor, which is a little bit of a shame because obviously this is a light goods engine, and yeah, a slow speed would be quite important to them, I assume. But here we go. I'm going to turn it up and we'll see if we can get a crawl out of it. Here we go. Oh, it jumped. Nope. Turn it up a bit more. Fraction more. Fraction more. Ooh. Yeah, that is not a strong crawl at all. Could have been an anomaly. Let's try that again. Well, that is slower. It's slower in reverse. Let me get it into shot and then I'll just nudge it down a little bit. No, any lower than that and it stops dead. So it's a real shame because the mechanism is so beautiful. Everything about the model is fantastic, but it is let down by that motor which kicks in at just too high a speed. I also say it could be a gearing issue potentially because the loco does run pretty quickly, I would say. I mean, at full speed it's a bit silly. So I would say the gearing could have been changed quite easily to sacrifice some of that speed, particularly at higher voltages, to give us a bit better control at the lower speeds. So if I had to criticise the model, that would probably be it. Yeah, the crawl is not great. Having said that though, at any sort of higher speed, it is beautifully smooth and reasonably quiet as well. I mean, like that, yeah, can't complain. But it is a shame, yeah, the motor is a big letdown with this, and luckily Hornby don't often use 3-pole motors. They leave that sort of behaviour to the likes of Bachmann, although they are a little bit better these days. Anyway, I have measured the pulling force. She's not terribly powerful, 0.2 newtons, which is very, very low. That's the same as the Peckett, which is of course a much smaller locomotive. Yeah, most of my 060 tender engines are more powerful than that. This can only manage around 15 coaches on straight and level track, which is not an awful lot. Either way, she should be able to manage some goods, so I've set up a bit of a mixed goods train, as you can see, some southern box vans and then some open wagons. So let's get her coupled to those and see how she gets on. Hopefully she won't crash into them too hard. Okay, let's check that the couplings and everything are at the correct height, assuming they are on the wagons. You can never assume that really, can you, either? Has that worked? Oh yes, yeah, the coupling actually holds itself straight and it is perfectly level with the couplings on those southern box vans, so that's really good. Okay, forwards we go then. Can she manage these wagons? I haven't counted them. Feel free to count them if you like. Okay, so at that speed, yes, there seems to be plenty of power there. She's hauling those, no problem. See if we can speed it up as such. Yeah, very good. So it's a reasonable puller for its purpose, I would say. So today's theme is going to be 060 tender engines, so see which others you can spot. I'll give you the first few though. This is a loco, well, on the middle line, a loco that I have mentioned once already today. It is the Bachmann C-Class, which had 4 coaches when I started it. and it now only has 3, which is a bit of a worry, so I'm guessing it must have dropped one someplace. Yeah, a much more expensive model. They're not a viable purchase these days because the RRP is ridiculous, like 200 odd quid. They're about as good, I would say, as the Drummond 700 class, although they don't have a die-cast boiler or anything like that. I'm going to start this one off quite gingerly because I'm conscious of the other coach, which I'll have to go and find in a second, but I'll show you what's running on the inside line. So this is a real classic Southern 060 from the opposite end of the spectrum as far as eras are concerned. Probably the, I don't want to say last, probably the last Southern Railway 060 tender engine to be produced. It is the Q1 with a bit of a good strain. So don't forget to look out for the odd one out, and we will catch up with the 700 class. And talk of the devil, here it comes. Oh yes. Well, it must have managed the hill all right. Let's take the camera over there and see whether it did, shall we? So I would say, yeah, it's true, there are quite a lot really of smaller, cheaper engines that are more powerful than this one. So if you're only interested in, you know, a loco that you can put to work on your railway and haul lots of coaches and lots of wagons, this may not be the best choice, but if you particularly like the class and you want a decent model, I can highly recommend this. Overall, yeah, it's decent, as long as you don't really care about slow speed either. But as you could see with a train which is, you know, reasonably short, but not terribly so, it was fine. It managed that without any wheel slipping at all, which is pretty decent, I'd say. The Hornby Q1 is definitely much more of a beast though. I do like those. With an ocean of ocean wagons, well, more just a stream of ocean wagons really. I couldn't be bothered to put them all on. I don't want to kill my Q1 trying. It's just got a real character though, hasn't it? Look at the shape. It looks just like the T9s. You wouldn't believe, would you, how much it looks like a T9. But it's got character, that's for sure. And for that I really do love this. It looks wonderful at that speed, doesn't it? Like I say, anything beyond a crawl is perfectly acceptable, so don't think that I'm saying it's a terrible runner, it's just we've seen better. So here are some of my ratings then for the very lovely Hornby 700 class. Now I love this model, I really do, and I can highly recommend it to you, but as far as the ratings go I have to be 100% objective here, otherwise there's no point in doing these reviews. So the level of detail was really, really good, however I don't think it's quite up to the standard that some, say, 2020, 2019 releases have been, so I've given it just a 4. Yes, some of the pipe work wasn't dreadfully convincing because it was plastic, quite a lot of moulded detail on the side of the boiler, the cab wasn't absolutely astonishing, but we do have some really nice details such as the paintwork and the internal valve gear, so definitely a well-deserving 4-star there. The performance I've given just 3 stars. When it's running at speed it's really, really nice and smooth, but as an engine designed for goods work, the slow speed is a bit of a problem really because it can't do a very good crawl, so if that's something you're looking for, this model could disappoint, so I have just given it a 3 on performance there. Generally not a problem though. The power is also a little bit on the disappointing side. Like I say, 15 coaches is the equivalent to the Peckett. Nearly every other 060 tank engine I've reviewed has been more powerful than that. However, as a light goods engine, it is fit for purpose, you could argue, so it's not too bad. The mechanism I've given 4 stars, it really is a top class mechanism. If it wasn't for the 3-pole motor, I'd probably be giving this 5 stars. It's got the all-wheel pickup, proper bearings, really, really nice chassis. Yes, it's a good quality mechanism. Similarly, the quality itself is really good as well. We do have the die-cast boiler, which really makes this loco quality. It's not a dreadfully heavy model though, even despite the die-cast boiler, and a lot of the details are made of plastic and they're quite fragile as a result. No major quality issues though. Value then, I can't find the exact RRP. I know it would have been at least £110. I can find them as cheap as £101.84 from Hatton's. I personally think that is really, really good. It's not as good as the Dean Goods, for example, from Oxford Rail, which is a similarly sized 060 tender engine. Those at less than £100 were better value, I think. However, I would say this is a really good value purchase overall, especially given all of the die-cast. So I've given this 4.5 stars, bit of a benefit of the doubt there. Overall then, that is 7.47 out of 10, a very decent score. Into the logbook it goes. There we go, 7th, just above the Helgen Garrett and below the Ruston. Yep, overall it's a really good model. I can highly recommend this one. So this for me is definitely one of those situations where as a reviewer I say it's okay, I like it, but as a person, as an enthusiast, I say I love it. I really do love it. So I think whichever stance you take is absolutely fine. Do let me know in the poll. Do you think it's just alright, as I do as a reviewer, or do you love it like I do as an enthusiast? Also, you may not like it at all, and that's fine as well. I'll put that as an option. Yes, it would be interesting to know what you guys think. Overall though, I think it must be said it's a decent model. I think decent at the very least is fair to say. I hope you enjoyed it anyway, and that I think is about it for today. So thanks for your company, thanks for your time, and I will see you very soon with some more videos. Alright, cheers everybody, take good care of yourselves.